Hey everyone, I'm back and today I'm going to be doing a review on Zero Caffeine Coke Zero. Now, looking at just the label and comparing it to the original Coke Zero, we can see that there are some obvious differences. Now, when it comes to any sort of caffeine-free product, what ends up happening is that they usually use gold in order to symbolize that it's caffeine free. You'll see this with Pepsi, you'll see this with any kind of like pop or soda drink. Now, when it comes to the original and the zero caffeine versions, you can see that the way in which that they use the gold on the zero caffeine version is, it makes it look a certain way, and I want to get into a little bit about how each of the different cans look and as far as like the marketing is. Now, looking at the original one, we can see that the color scheme is basically black, red, and white lettering here, as well as black lettering here. And this overall design is very appealing, I would say, to the eye, personally speaking. It's different than the original Coca-Cola can that's without, that's not calories. It has calories in like 120 or 130, and that was like a pure red with just white lettering. And that version of of Coke it's for me, it's a bit too much as far as like red. I mean, it definitely stands out, but for me, I would say that I like the Coke Zero design better with the black and the red. I think the black looks a little bit more sophisticated. It looks a little bit more cool to me. And I really like the fact that they went ahead with the white lettering and contrasted it with a red and a black background, because I think that really makes the lettering pop and makes it easy to read. In comparison, the zero caffeine version has gold lettering with a red background, and you can probably see that it's a little bit harder to read. And I don't know if that was necessarily a good choice. I think maybe they could have went with a white lettering here, and I don't know, maybe like used gold as more of like a background color, maybe complemented it with the red and the black, I think. But they chose to do it this way, and it doesn't look horrible. I mean, it still gets the point across that it's, a zero caffeine Coke Zero, but it just doesn't look as appealing to me as this can, the normal Coke Zero, or any sort of like other variation of like how they could have done the design for the zero caffeine version. Yeah, and apart from that, another notable difference would have to be the rim. You can see that the zero caffeine version has like a gold rim on the very top, and it's got black lettering. The black lettering is actually very visible and it's easy to read. And I would argue that it's actually easier to read than the original Coke Zero that has like a smaller font with a black background. The font is white, but because of its smaller size and because it doesn't have any sort of like outline or like an outline to it, it doesn't look as clean to me as compared to the zero caffeine version, which it's got black lettering, but the black lettering has like a white outline to it, which just gives it a little bit more as far as like sticking out. And I kind of like that. I kind of like the way that looks, and it just looks a little bit better to me. Apart from that, the top of the can is gold for the zero caffeine, and it's silver for the normal Coke Zero original. I personally prefer the original. I like the silver. Both of the parts that I don't know what they're called exactly, but the tab parts here, they're both silver for both cans though. So overall, looking at just the design of these, I would have to say that I like the original Coke Zero a lot more, but the zero caffeine also looks good too. It just doesn't look as good to me. Next, what I thought I would do is take a look at what I think matters the most as far as like these two drinks go, and that would have to be the taste, or in particular any sort of like differences that one could expect from drinking a zero caffeine versus like a normal Coke Zero. Now, when it comes to the normal Coke Zero, the taste compared to like an original Coca-Cola that has calories in it with sugar and not aspartame, That I would say that there's a more of a distinction between those two cans of Coke. Uh, but as far as the Coke Zero and the Coke Zero caffeine, the caffeine free version actually doesn't taste any different from the original Coke Zero. Uh, I think caffeine in general has more of a like a bitter sort of taste to it by itself, but and so one would expect that the Coke Zero that has no caffeine in it to be a little bit sweeter perhaps, but I didn't notice any significant differences between both of the different Coke Zeros here as far as their taste goes. They both pretty much taste exactly the same, and I would say that if there is any sort of difference, that it's probably negligible and maybe just in your head as far as that goes. Now, when it comes to the availability in stores, I would say that the Coke Zero is a more older product and has a little bit more it's got a little bit more of like availability in the stores in general. I mean, I tend to buy Coke Zero from like Costco, and they come in like a pack of 36, and it's just been around for a lot longer. The zero caffeine version, I think, is a lot more new, and because of the fact that it's more new, it's not available in as many stores. And this one I actually got from like a no frills. And I got it from there, and it came in a pack of about, I believe it was 24. And I would love to be able to see this version of zero caffeine over at a Costco in a pack of 36, because that would mean that it's like getting as much popularity as the original Coke Zero. And I think it deserves to be more popular, especially in the future, because it's understandable that it's not as popular right now because it's a little bit more new. But if it can grow to become as popular as the original Coke Zero, that'd be great, and we could see more of the caffeine-free version in stores and available in a variety of stores, and just being available in more stores in general, I would say. As far as costs go, I would say that both pretty much cost, I think, identically. I think the only differences that you would probably notice as far as costs would go would be if you look at individual stores from one another. Like a Walmart is going to have a certain kind of a price range for their soda pop drinks, as well in comparison to like Costco, in comparison to like maybe Superstore or something like that, or No Frills. So they each have their own individual sort of like price ranges, and they may be a little bit different here and there. But for the most part, they tend to be pretty much exactly the same for the same products that they happen to carry. But in particular, when it comes to comparing directly between Coke Zero and caffeine Coke Zero, I would say the price is pretty much identical, and I don't expect there to be any significant differences there on that part. Now, when it comes to preferences, I would have to say that I like the zero caffeine Coke Zero a lot more than the original Coke Zero. Even though the Coke Zero original has like a nicer label to it, that's not really something that matters that much. It's more cosmetic, and that's not really doing anything for me as far as like like what matters most in like a Coke product. The taste is obviously very important, but also at the same time, what is actually inside the can itself is, I would say, a lot more important too. The actual look at the can is important to a degree, but we're getting into like the nitty gritty. We're kind of like nitpicking a little bit at that point. So when it comes to my personal sort of like journey through Coke, I like Coke. I like the idea of being able to drink Coke. Having like a normal Coke with calories in it is what I would normally drink. But ever since I started my dieting and my fitness routine and getting really dialed in on all of that, I started to notice that drinking calories didn't seem like a very smart or wise decision to want to go with. And so what I ended up doing is I started to cut out a lot of the calorie containing drinks that I would normally have. And so a part of that was basically Coke and any sort of like soda drinks or pop drinks that I would have, or juice drinks even, and getting rid of those from my diet. and replacing them with 0 calorie options or versions, as well as like like very, very low calorie drinks like the almond breeze that I reviewed in a previous video. And so when Coke Zero came out, I was really happy with it because it has 0 calories in it, but it has a really great taste. Now, obviously, there's Diet Coke and Diet Pepsis and stuff like that, but I found that those tasted a little bit different than what I was normally used to when it came to Coke, and so I didn't feel as comfortable or as inclined to want to drink those. But at this point, it doesn't really matter. I like drinking Diet Cokes or Diet Pepsis if I don't have any other option because it's better than nothing. But if I can, I always would go with the original Coke Zero. From there, I noticed that even though Coke Zero has 0 calories, like a product can always be better. And so because of the fact that caffeine-free Coke has basically no caffeine in it, whereas the Coke Zero version here, the original, it has about 34 milligrams of caffeine in it, which I'll show you right here. I don't know if you can see that. It's got about 34 milligrams of caffeine. This version, even though the caffeine content is very low, it still has at least some kind of caffeine in it. And someone who is like an athlete or an aspiring athlete, that kind of a person, managing how much caffeine you have in your system on a day-to-day basis and being careful about all of that, I think there is value to it because caffeine is a bit of like a stimulant, and it does cause changes in your body that are significant enough where it can affect your actual performance. And so if you drink caffeine or if you ingest any sort of caffeine, either through coffee or Cokes, or if you take any sort of pills, it can affect your performance. And it usually is for the better if you have like caffeine as a pre-workout and you go to the gym afterwards and you start working out and you start lifting your weights, or you do your weight training, or even running or anything like that. It helps with burning fat as well. And so caffeine is really good as far as like an athlete is concerned. But one of the drawbacks is that if you drink it regularly and you drink like maybe 100, 200 milligrams, maybe even 300 to 400, which I think is like the maximum limit that you want to go up to, and you drink like that much amount of caffeine on a regular basis, or if you eat it, for example, like chocolate or something, or pills, if you do that regularly enough and then you go off of it, you'll start to notice that you have like withdrawal like symptoms. And for me, what ends up happening is that I'll start getting like migraines and headaches and stuff, and that isn't really helpful for me. And so I really am very cautious about how much caffeine I take into my system. And for the most part, I like to avoid any sort of caffeine at all until I actually need to have it, or I really, really feel as though I could benefit greatly from having it in my diet. And in which case, if I do want to implement it, I usually like to implement it in the form of a pill, which is very, very easy for me. When it comes to like drinking caffeine from like a Coke Zero, the problem with that is that it can sort of interfere with the amount of caffeine that you have overall in the day, and that can cause a bit of an issue. So preferably, I would like it so that my drinks or the food that I eat doesn't really conflict with any of the caffeine that I take from pills, because I'm trying to control both so that I hardly get any sort of caffeine from my diet. But then if I want to include any caffeine, I do so through some pills that I can take that are specifically meant for any sort of like athletic event that I may be preparing for. So when Zero Caffeine Coke came along, or Coke Zero came along, I was really happy because I could basically drink Coke and not have to worry about how much caffeine I'm getting into my system. Now, obviously, Coke Zero caffeine free, the zero caffeine version, it probably has a little bit of caffeine in it, but I don't think it's anything to really like write home about, because the amount is probably so low that it's not anything that's going to impact your actual performance, good or bad. The fact that it has 0 calorie on the label, or 0 caffeine on the label, I think is proof that it's probably got a very small amount of caffeine in it, because I don't think like the FDA would allow a product to be on shelves that's claiming to be zero caffeine, but in fact has an amount of caffeine in it that basically is a lot more than what is like within its guidelines. So the bare minimum amount of caffeine that a product can have would have to be like around like zero to about maybe 5 milligrams of caffeine for the FDA or whatever to say that it's okay for you to say that it has zero caffeine in it. But I don't really actually know what the procedure is or the protocols is as far as like how like the FDA or the Health Canada or the CIFA, they work as far as like how they go about labeling products, or they manage all of that. But a zero caffeine product is probably going to be very, very low in caffeine, so I'm not really worried about the caffeine content of like a zero caffeine Coke Zero. It's probably going to be very, very small, if any at all. And so I like the option of having that, because it means that I can just basically drink Coke and not have to worry about any sort of calories and not have to worry about any sort of caffeine intake, because it doesn't have any. I can just basically, whenever I need caffeine, I can take it separately and not have it conflict with the amount of caffeine that I may be getting from a normal, typical Coke Zero. Or like a coffee, but when it comes to coffee, I drink decaf. But yeah, with that being said, I like the zero caffeine Coke Zero a lot more because it doesn't have any caffeine, and to me that's a plus. It's for me, it's going to have to replace the normal Coke Zero, which in the past Coke Zero was actually the drink that replaced the original Coke. But now it itself is being replaced by the zero caffeine version. In the future, I don't know, I may actually have to replace this with like an aspartame-free version of Coke Zero that's also caffeine-free. And as far as flavor goes, I would like to see Coke make a vanilla version of Coke Zero that's also caffeine-free and also doesn't have any aspartame in it. That would be really awesome, and if they can keep the taste the same, that would be really great. If they could keep the taste similar or very like, if they can increase, make it even better. Obviously, if it's a vanilla version, it's going to taste different. But if they can keep it delicious and keep it reminiscent of like the original Coke that was vanilla version, that would be really awesome. But at the same time, be zero calories and zero caffeine, and even zero aspartame. That'd be really great. And I don't know how they could improve upon that further, but obviously there's probably many different ways you can improve upon a drink. And by the time that kind of a product comes out on shelves, maybe I'll have an idea of what I would like for the next generation of Coke Zero products or Coke products in general. So with that being said, I am the Apex Predator, and this has been my review of the Zero Caffeine Coke Zero, as well as a little bit about the original Coke Zero, as well as Coca-Cola as a brand and their products in general. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you get notified whenever I upload a new video. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.